Welcome everyone to a HoN Patch Analysis video here for patch version 4.10.1. This patch went live on January 18th of 2022, and well, I'm sure most of you have heard the news already, but HoN will be shutting down in June of 2022, so in about 5 months from now, I believe on the 20th of June to be exact. So this very well could be the final balance patch here for Heroes of Newerth moving forward, which means what we are about to go over will most likely be what HoN will look like for its remaining lifetime. So we very well could no longer have any more patches following this one. And I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. We'll see what HoN is going to look like moving forward. As we have design here, we've reverted the Christmas theme, music, map, cosmetics, and in-game HUD back to their default variants. So we're out of the Christmas theme now. We have Staff of the Master and Legacy changes here. The first one going to be Arachna. So the staff previously was granting her the cooldown reduction to 35, 25, and 15 seconds, and now it's going to be bumped up to 30, 25, and 20 seconds. So the cooldown being 15 seconds was a little bit too low at the level 3. Pretty much always had the spider available with the staff, as well as it gives other bonuses, of course, than just cooldown reduction, but going to be changed to 20 seconds. Now she is going to get some buffs down the patch notes, so don't be too alarmed. Arachna was on the lower win rate spectrum, so she will be receiving some buffs to compensate for a small staff nerf here. But that will be the nerf to her staff effect. Next is Deadlift. We have the Unholy Strength, which is her first ability. The cooldown is now reduced by 1.5 seconds. It was previously reduced by 2 seconds. So strength stolen here increased from 4 strength to 8 strength. Was previously increased from 4 strength to 10 strength. So you only steal 8 strength now. Deadlift's Unholy Strength is a little too strong and frustrating to deal with when boosted by Staff of the Master. This change should alleviate some of those issues while retaining Staff of the Master's viability on Deadlift. Yep, so you can't spam it as often and you can't steal as much strength. It was a little bit too strong. Next we have a Drunken Master Staff. So this is a new one, and I think this is the only new Staff of the Master effect being added to the game. So you're going to get 10 more max charges on your drink, which I believe, if my math is correct, you get up to 50, it's either 55 or 56 drink charges now. I'm going to go ahead and load this Learnatorium here and just double check that. But I believe it was around 45 charges. Where's Drunken Master? You could have 45 drunk charges. So now with a staff, you will be able to get 55. And again, I think this is not as big as it seems. You know, you get lots of bonuses. You get crit and stuff like that. But as you use skills, you deplete charges. So you're never really going to be keeping the max charges. You're always going to be having a middle ground. So I don't think this is like a huge deal. 10 is nice, but I don't think this is going to make or break anything. Then in addition, we got the 3-point strike here. This is the ultimate. Time to reset all activated strike points for a target after the effect of 3-point strikes has been triggered already, reduced from 12 seconds to 4 seconds. So every 4 seconds, if you're able to trigger the 3-point strikes, you can do the ultimate effect, which is pretty nice. But again, you have to commit 4,200 gold for this item. I don't think this is going to be like a game-breaking Staff of the Master effect, but it's going to be kind of cool to see how that kind of comes into play. Doesn't this on paper this does not sound to me like this is going to be like overpowered or anything. Might be something fun to try out, but again, a 4,200 gold item for Drunken is kind of a big commitment. So pretty cool that they added that staff though. Master of Arms here. This is change effects to pre-existing. So, combining Bulldozer and Cheetah together has imperfections during Master's Call, causing the bonuses to drop to 70% of their original values. Attack speed bonus reduced from these values to these values, and attack damage from these values to these values. So basically, Staff's getting nerfed here for Moa, the Bulldozer and Cheetah are going to get 70%. So these values here are 70% of these values. Master of Arms Stab with the Master Effect was poorly designed and far too powerful, to the point where it was deemed necessary to pick up as his first core item. Yeah, I agree. The staff was definitely, this was one of the most powerful staff effects in the game, and basically, like this says, it was basically like a necessity to pick this up on the hero to make him become much more powerful. So I do like this here. A large part of the poor design stemmed from gaining the full effects from both Bulldozer and Cheetah for an abnormally long duration. When combined with the other changes to Master of Arms, Staff of the Master is less of a mandatory item to get for him. I like that. I don't feel like Staff should be a like 100% must buy for a hero, and when that's kind of the thing, I feel like that's a poor design, which is kind of what this is saying here. So the fact that this will tone down his staff effect will mean that Moa will have more avenues for item paths, and he won't be kind of glued to picking up a Staff of the Master. I think that's a really good change. General now we have Kongor, boss enchantment speed, bonus movement speed per charge increased from 8 to 10. So movement speed on Kong buffs got nerfed twice in the past. It went from, I believe it was 15 to 12, and then from 12 to 8. I think I'm correct on those numbers, but it was like around there. So it used to be, I think 15, and it went all the way down to 8, which was a huge, huge change over two nerfs. And what also happened was we had the enchantment Vitality, I think it's called, which was the stats and the regen one buffed in the last patch, I believe. So basically, what happened was the enchantment. This enchantment was barely picked up after its nerfs, and after the Vitality enchantment. There you go. So yeah, it was called Vitality enchantment. This one was becoming really, really prominent to the point where movement speed was kind of neglected. So this kind of remedies that a little bit, putting it back up to 10, which is like a middle ground, because when it was at 12, people were still taking movement speed. Thus, it needed to get a second nerf. But now if it goes back up to 10, uh, that could be grounds for people choosing to maybe pick movement speed again, like especially on carries and whatnot, to replace that sixth item slot in the late game. So I like that, even though it's only two. I think that's a pretty good change to the Kong buffs. Looks like we're into hero balance now, so we'll start with Adrenaline here. Um, this hero's been pretty hard to get right since he got reworked to a strength hero from Agi, but we'll see what he's got going for him at the moment. So starting attack damage increased. Okay, it's gonna increase from 8 at the start to less 4 more as well. Adrenaline starting attack damage is drastically lower than the average strength heroes. This should compensate for some of the following changes. Okay. Shard Blast damage reduced here. So it looks like 5 per level. Duration for maintaining charges on Shard Blast after hitting 2 plus enemy charges reduced from 10 seconds to 7 seconds. Okay, so you have less time to keep the charges. Okay. Rush range reduced here by looks like 45, then 80, then 115, and then 150. So that's a big difference at the higher levels. The lower level, you won't notice it too much, but it scales higher. So 150 range less on the rush. It's a big difference from 800 to 650, so you're not going to be able to move as far. Movement speed bonus when dashing through an enemy hero reduced. Okay, that's a big difference in movement speed bonus. So you went from 40% bonus movement speed to 16. Movement speed bonus from rush can now stack up to 2 times max of 32. Okay, so you can still get 32% movement speed. These changes to rush make it less effective when used as an escape mechanism. I like that. I'm not a big fan of tanky heroes being very mobile because it makes for them just being too hard to deal with. So I like this change. Just kind of tones down his slipperiness. Then we have Ember Shard here. Max pull distance reduced by 100. Pull speed reduced. Okay, so the pull's a little slower. There's no overall change in the max amount of time which affected our pull. They're stunned. Leash distance reduced from 750 to 650. The changes to Ember Shard can be considered a minor buff as you can proc the effects of Ember Shard more reliably without the need to use Rush. Okay. Death's Halo, this is the ultimate max duration reduced, so getting reduced at all levels here, 2 seconds at level 3, so it's only a 5-second cage now. Bonuses are now capped at 7 charges. Max armor per charge reduced, strength per charge reduced. So this is going to alleviate a lot of his frustrations. It changes to Death's Halo, slightly reduces its efficacy for Adrenaline survivability when fighting multiple heroes, which make Adrenaline slightly easier to deal with while Death's Halo is active. Adrenaline was far too powerful in the hands of players skilled with him while having a relatively poor performance in the average game. These changes should address both issues and put Adrenaline in a healthy position across all skill brackets performance-wise. So yeah, this hero can become very difficult to deal with if he gets out of control, but a lot of tone downs to him should bring him back in line. Next we have Amundra. So Amundra is going to get a lot of changes here. Kind of go over them quickly, but he's going to get his regen kind of placed on all of his basic abilities. So his Q spell here, he gains 80 max movement speed. And then while on the path, he has movement speed increased to 380, meteor projectile decreased by 0.1 seconds, so it's easier to land this. Total delay for impact after casting the ability from 1 second to 0.8, and now he passively gets regen per level of leveling up the Path of Destruction. Ignite is the second skill. You also get passive health regen per second. So basically, instead of the old Ashes to Ashes giving right here 2, 3, 4, 5, it's kind of spread across all his abilities. So now you kind of want to level up everything a little bit. I mean, I don't know if he'll do that necessarily, but in order to get the old effects of his E maxed out, you need to have high levels of all of his skills. So he's not going to get a huge chunk of regen all at once. It's going to be very gradual across all his skills, which I kind of like the concept of this. Ashes, passive health regen per second. Yep, there we go. Non-hero enemy units now take 25% less damage from this ability. So he's going to be less of like a farmer and more of like a laner now. He's gonna have more movement speed, more regen across his skills, easier to land his stun. This is gonna make him a much better laner, just on paper from reading all this stuff. Amon also gains 0.4 attack speed per charge from this ability, max of 20 bonus attack speed. Price for level 3 or higher to deal magic damage to neutral groups. Okay, so he cannot jungle. He's getting the pred treatment. He cannot jungle until he's level 3, and even then he's gonna deal 25 less damage to non-hero enemy units. So you basically don't want to jungle with this guy anymore, which is good because I think he's supposed to be a laner. Amon now has better performance against enemy heroes in general and in the laning phase and is no longer a viable jungler. Path of Destruction's overall delay has been reduced by 20%, which should increase its accuracy, just enough to be more of a reliable skill to use in combat. Overall, every ability now grants a small amount of health regen, which allows for variations in a skill build without needing to max out Ashes to Ashes first. Yeah, I mean, this basically summarizes all of the points. So he's not a viable jungler, he's a better laner, and his skills are more reliable. I think this is gonna overall make him a better hero, like overall. I don't really think Amun-Ra was very viable, but with some of these changes, I think he could definitely be a lane dominator now, especially when paired with something that has a setup to help him land his stun if he even needs that anymore. So I like those changes to Amun-Ra. That should definitely make him a more viable pick. Next, we have Arachna. So we talked about the Staff of the Master cooldown nerfs. Now we will talk about the buffs coming to Arachna. So she's getting some of her attack range back. Again, she's not going back to a 600 range hero, but she's up to 575, which is up there with the best of them. Webshot's getting a mana cost reduction by 5, so you can lane dominate a bit more, and that's kind of the whole point of this previously getting nerfed, was to make her laning phase a little bit more manageable, but she's going back to being more of a lane dominator now, and that's due to lack of farming tools, so it makes sense. Spider Sting. Max health of the Spiderling increased from 456 to 567. So you need one more hit at all levels to kill the spider. So that's going to make the spider a lot more potent. 5 hits in early levels is going to be really hard to kill, and 7 hits is going to take a little while in the late game stages. So Arachna getting a lot of nice buffs here, and I definitely think we'll see her played a lot more as a result. Calamity, she's getting on her Dragon's Path 5 damage per level. Very minor change here, but just gonna up her damage output. I think that's fine. I think as long as it's not her passive, the Funeral Pyre, back when this used to deal 100%, it was nutty. But the Dragon's Path getting a 5 damage buff per level, I think is fine. Chipper, Focus Buffer, having the max shield health reduced here. Looks like by 25 at level 2, 50 at level 3, and 75 at level 4. So basically, the idea here is Chipper is a S tier support hero right now. He is insanely strong in lane due to his high harassment from rockets, and simultaneously he can be a defensive hero with his focus buffer in the early parts of the game, which makes him extremely potent. And a nerf here to the focus buffer I think was warranted because this kind of tones down some of his defensive nature while not touching his offensive capabilities. I think this kind of differentiates the hero a bit more from heroes like Monarch, which are supposed to be primarily defensive, but Chipper is kind of just doing that a bit better in a sense that he just kind of gives you a shield that kind of sits there, and he's still insanely aggressive. So I like this. I think this was a good change, which kind of brings Chipper a little bit down, um, more in line with some of the other support heroes. Kronos, getting a strength growth increase here by 0.1. It's just going to make him a little tankier over the course of the game. Small buff. Doesn't change too much. Cersei Doppelganger. This is the illusion spell, the second skill here. Illusion lifetime reduced 14, 16, 18, and 20. Level 1 doesn't change much, but the level 2, 3, and 4 go down quite a lot here. So the illusion uptime is going to be cut by a third here, from 30 seconds to 20, which means you're not going to be able to have as many illusions up at the same time. Cooldown increased from 11 seconds to 18, 16, 14, 12. So you're going to want to max this skill now earlier rather than late because you get a huge cooldown reduction on the illusion spam. And if it's a 12-second cooldown with a 20-second uptime, that means you can have 2 illusions at the same time for about 8 seconds, but you will never have 3 illusions up. Unless, of course, you can get an illusion rune, but, well, that's going to be kind of rare. So anyway, Cersei's illusions were frustrating to deal with at higher levels of play. The overall uptime of the illusions have been reduced to address this issue. That is definitely the most frustrating thing about playing against the Cersei is the constant illusion spam. So toning that down, you can't have basically 3 or almost 3 up at the same time. Now you can have 2 is a big difference. Twisted Visage here, this ultimate where you can take over an enemy. Cooldown reduced from these numbers to these numbers. So the early game, getting a tone down. The level 3 is still 60 seconds. Mana cost reduced here. So you use less mana and you have the ultimate more frequently in the early and mid game stages. In exchange, Cersei gets slightly better availability on her most fun ability, Twisted Visage. So there you go. She's getting a small buff to the ultimate in compensation for a nerf to her illusions. Kind of reducing some of her frustrating factors. I like it. Deadlift here, Unholy Strength, max amount of strength stolen reduced from 100 to 80. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, this just reduces how tanky you can get on the deadlift from stealing strength. And also, I think realistically, you're not achieving the 100 all that often. This probably affects modes like Mid Wars more than it does the Forest of Kaldor or normal modes, more than anything. I think also only when you get the staff can you realistically achieve that, but it takes a long time to get to 100. So again, I think this is more like almost tailored to a Mid Wars balance than anything. I don't think this is really going to change a whole lot in normal play, and if anything, going back to the staff change where you can steal strength less quickly or slower, however you want to say that, is more of the bigger change than this one specifically. Dr. Repulsor, Ludicrous Speed. This is the ultimate. Cooldown increased from 0.5 seconds to 1.2, 0.85, and 0.5. So basically, the early and mid game of Doctor, you're not going to be able to fly as often. It's going to leave more room for counterplay. And you're gonna have to be more aware of where you fly because you can get caught. This change should make Dr. Repulsor noticeably more vulnerable and have slightly less sustained damage in the early to mid game. without affecting primary combos at those phases of the game. Okay. Uh, 1.2 seconds does seem like a lot. It is almost 3 times as long. It's like 2.5 times as long here of a cooldown, which on paper sounds like a really long time. But I mean, again, this is one of those things where I'm gonna have to kind of play test to see how it feels. But man, that just means getting to level 16 is gonna be all that much more important now for Dr. Repulsor. But the thing with this hero is he kind of can snowball and take over games around 10 to 15 minutes if he gets an icon and you're able to just keep kind of rolling in the icon charges. And I think this is kind of not necessarily hitting the icon, of course, but trying to kind of keep Doctor more in line with some other heroes at that stage of the game. Electrician, intelligence gain per level increased from 1.5 to 1.8. So it's going to give him more mana pool. He got hit with a Gnome's nerf with his shields in the previous patch when Gnomes uh, used to work with percentage-based abilities. Now that is no longer the case. So I think it's fine to give him an intelligence boost here. The whole core concept of Electrician is to be tanky by mana pool, and having more intelligence to work with is going to help him with that. So I like that. Emerald Warden, Hunter's Command. This is the second spell. Damage multiplier when hitting enemy heroes that you do not have vision of increased from 0.5 to 0.75. So, giving him a little extra damage there on his Hunter's Command. I think that's completely fine. Empath, base agility reduced from 20 to 18. Okay, I don't think this changes really anything. Just like minor armor and minor attack speed, which I think this is kind of just to bring Empath's win rate numbers down a little bit. I don't think this really has too much influence on anything per se. Flux, base intelligence increased from 16 to 18. Okay. Strength hero getting a little bit more mana pool to work with. That's nice. Glacius. Strength growth per level increased to 1.6, so by 0.1. Agility increased by 0.1. These are minor changes to him. Base movement speed increased to 290. Okay. Gives him a little bit more mobility. Here's a nice one. Tundra Blast. This is the Q spell. Cooldown reduced from 15 seconds, and it scales down now to 12 seconds. I was already a big fan of maxing Tundra Blast as the first ability, and now I think you get even more incentive to do so. So I like that. I mean, you definitely get Thunder Blast to level 2, if not maxing it, because the scaling from level 1 to level 2 is very nice. You go from 110 to 170 damage right away, which is a 60 damage increase. Then you go to 190 and 210, which is only 20 damage per level, versus getting more stun duration or disable on the ice imprisonment. So it gives a little more incentive, I guess, to max out the Tundra Blast to levels 3 and 4 now over the Ice Imprisonment. I guess you have a little bit more of a flexibility, but it's nice. You get some lower cooldown there. This one's going to be a big one. Magebane got lots of changes last patch, which made him very, very strong. He went from being awful to very strong in one patch, to the point where I think people were banning him like almost every single game. He was just too frustrating to play against. So I expect we're going to see a lot of nerfs here from Magebane. We'll kind of go over them quickly. But again, I don't play this hero, so I'm not going to necessarily say how much this kind of influences the hero. But basically, the hopes here, after I'm reading all of this, is that the hero just kind of becomes more in line with everything else while kind of doing his job of being a mage counter. So he's getting a strength gain reduction here by 0.1, base strength reduced by 1. His second skill, the blink, mana cost increased by 5. Shield is going to be changed here by 10, 15, 20, and 25 health. And he's going to deal less magic damage. I believe this is when you blink in, you deal magic damage in an AoE. It says magic damage to enemies in the area now only triggers if the shield breaks. Oh, so you do not deal the magic damage when you blink in now. Only triggers if the shield breaks from receiving magic damage instead of being applied upon reaching. Okay, this is actually a big change. So before I used to blink in, deal damage, and slow people, and now you just blink on top of them and slow them, and if they don't fight you back with magic spells, you're not going to trigger the shield, which I think this is a really good change, actually. It's going to work similar to a curse shield. You have to actually deal the damage to blow up the shield. So now when Magebane blinks on you, you can choose to try to just run away from him and ignore him and not blow up his shield, which I like that. That gives room for counterplay. So this magic damage instance will not be triggered if the shield expires normally, i.e. when its state lifetime expires. So if you just completely ignore Magebane and don't use any magic damage spells on him, he won't blow up the shield, which I think is a really good idea design-wise. Movement speed slow reduced by looks like 5% at all levels, and the radius also reduced by 50 units. Okay, so this should make the skill a lot more balanced. I really like the direction of this. Uh, Master of the Mantra. This is his E spell. Attack speed bonus granted to Magebane when attacking an enemy hero reduced. Looks by 4, then 6, then 8, then 10. So he gets a lot less attack speed. And by the way, 40 attack speed is still quite a lot. 50 was crazy. If we compare this to like Valkyrie when she leaps in, it's the same. 40 attack speed. So she gets 40 attack speed when she maxes out the leap. Kind of similar. Um, Mana Rift. Cooldown increased by 5, and yep, 5 seconds at all levels. So Magebane is powerful in lane and is deliberately intended to be that way to retain his threat level against mages at the point where they are the most powerful. So yeah, the idea here is to keep Magebane strong in laning phase because he's supposed to counter mages. However, his early game power has been toned down a bit for his opponents to have more reasonable timings regarding counterplay. Most notably, he has lost a large amount of last hit power and extra harass damage, as well as a bit of overall farm speed in mid-game through the nerfs on Flash of Anti-Magic, and the Anti-Magic shield must be broken for it to deal damage around him. I like those changes quite a lot. Let's talk about Master of Arms now. So he got a nerf to his staff, which was seen to be as his like core or niche item. Let's see what else we have to talk about here of Master of Arms. So his base intelligence got increased by 2. So a hero that doesn't have the best mana pool, Acid Bomb being his core ability, does require a fair amount of mana to use. His E spell here, his weapon enhancement, Bulldozer attack range bonus rescaled from 150 to 90, 105, 120, 135, 150. So you do not get the 150 bonus attack range at level 1, which I think is very important because Master of Arms could always box out people from level 1 just due to having very, very high attack range. And now you're going to only get 90, which is still going to put him at 590 versus 650, which is, I would say, a really big difference. And now you need to level up the weapon enhancement in order to take more advantage of those the extra attack range. I think that's a really good change. Master's Call here, this is the ultimate cast action time reduced by 0.1 seconds. So buff duration for the attack speed, attack damage bonus on self reduced from 25 to 14 seconds. Man, I actually can't believe that buff lasted 25 seconds. This is, I believe, on a 60-second cooldown or something, and you get the buff for 25 seconds. That's kind of ridiculous. Now it's only going to be 14 seconds, so it's going to go from almost half the duration of the ultimate's cooldown to about a quarter now. But she now also grants Master of Arms 60, 90, 120 tapering bonus movement speed for the first 6 seconds. That's gonna make his carry presence a lot better. Giving a carry hero like Master of Arms mobility when he uses his ultimate, 120 movement speed is a lot. I mean, he's going to be close to hasted, I want to say. He's going to be like around 500 movement speed, I think, at the start of when you use the ultimate. And if you have Ghost Marchers or like any kind of movement-based abilities, items, sorry, I think you're basically going to be hasted for the beginning part of the ultimate. And now again, this is tapering movement speed, so it's going to scale down over the 6 seconds. But I mean, when you talk about Master of Arms, his main weakness is his lack of mobility. So he kind of has to stand there and fight and hold his ground. But when you get movement speed on the ultimate, that's going to severely increase his ability to chase down people trying to escape him. And on top of that, he's going to have his 650 range. So he's going to be hitting you from far away. And of course, you can always bulk that up with items like Wingbow and whatnot, which we'll talk about later. But these buffs, I think, compensate for the damage and attack speed nerfs that we saw on the staff. which I think are really good. And this is going to help make the hero more in line with being a carry versus being kind of a jack of all trades, master of nothing kind of hero, where he was kind of a good support that transitioned into like a semi carry. He wasn't really the best at hard carrying. He wasn't the best at main supporting. He obviously can't be an offlaner, but he was also decent in mid lane. So again, he was like a jack of all trades hero, master of nothing, supposed to be a strong carry, but a lot of the times in competitive or high level play, we see him ran as a support. So that's kind of design issue with the hero. I mean, how many other heroes in the game can we really say are carries that can play a really, really good support? I think the list is either non-existent or very, very few. So Master of Arms kind of had this own niche of being like a kind of mediocre but decent carry, but a pretty solid but mediocre support at the same time that transitioned into a semi carry. So I think with these changes to both the staff and his ultimate and how his E works in early levels, I think this should kind of bring him more in line with being a better carry overall and less of a good support. So I really like these changes here. Did I read this already? Let me read this quick. Master of Arms will now have better overall performance in the mid game and late game without Staff of the Master, while having slightly less attack range with his Bulldozer gun in the early game. The ridiculously high buff duration of Master's Call has also been reduced to a reasonable duration. Okay, I like all this stuff here for Moa, and I think it's very healthy for his playstyle. Let's talk about Ophelia, one of my favorite heroes, as I am, well, kind of known for being a jungle player. Let's see what we got for Ophelia here. Command. The creeps affected by command now also gain mana regen per second and max mana. So this change will allow Ophelia players to not always have to pick up Ring of Sorcery in every single game, allowing her more potential build options. Note that Ophelia can passively boost the mana regen of her creeps even further with auras like Ring of the Teacher or by dominating Catman Champion to make use of its mana regeneration aura. Alright, so the hopes here is with this buff to the creeps, you don't need to pick up Sorcery Ring all the time. I'm going to definitely try that out and see how that works. I like this in concept, as long as you're able to simultaneously have mana pool on your hero, because the hero itself does use quite a lot of mana, having 4 abilities that you're going to be wanting to use quite often. So I like that. It's a small buff to Ophelia and kind of giving her different build avenues. Definitely be looking to try that out myself. Profit. Debilitate. This is the Q spell. Tapering movement speed, slow magnitude reduced from 30% to 20%. Okay, so less of a slow on the Q spell. That got added 1 or 2 patches ago where he got added a slow. It didn't use to slow, so it's still going to slow, but just by a little bit less, so still fine. Puppet Master, Voodoo Puppet, the ultimate after becoming unkillable, increased Voodoo Puppet's lifetime from 1.5 to 2.5 seconds, 1.5 to 3 seconds. So I guess basically the idea here is that you can just keep using spells on the Voodoo Puppet even if the puppet has used up its damage value. So you can use like disables on the puppet and whatnot. So that's fine. I don't see any reason to go against that or whatnot. Send Wraith Mirage, this is the ultimate, and it's getting a cooldown increase by 5 seconds at all levels. So a little bit longer to use the Mirage. I think that's warranted. He's a very strong meta carry. Silhouette, base strength increased from 15 to 16. I like it. I think you start the game with like 450 HP on Silhouette, so this just adds like another 15 or whatever the exact number value is, but somewhere around there. You get a little bit of extra starting HP. It's always nice. Helps out with the man up dual lanes when you're playing a Silhouette. Thunderbringer, Blast of Lightning. This is the second skill here. Reveal effect from this ability. Reveal radius that reveals enemy wards. Now only has a radius of 450 units from 900 units. Still grants vision in a large area and reveals other stealth enemy units. So basically, this is a nerf to his counter warding capability with his Blast of Lightning. So Thunderbringer, he has a very easy access to counter warding for kind of no risk and low cost to himself. So that's getting nerfed, which I think is healthy for the game. Lightning Storm, this is the ultimate reveal effect from this ability. No longer reveals enemy wards, still grants vision in a large area and reveals other stealth enemy units. So this will also not or this will not reveal words at all, whereas the Blast of Lightning still reveals them, but in less radius. Thunderbringer's kind of running a utility yielded too high reward for little to no risk. Reducing the radius drastically increases the precision requirements if the player wishes to counter ward. Overall, significantly more time will have to be spent to check a larger area for wards with Blast of Lightning, should the player wish to be thorough. Okay. Next we have Torturer, his Agonizing Bonds, which is the E spell. Magic damage changed to these values. So overall, the damage remains the same at the higher levels, but the early level is going to get rescaled to deal 80, 140, 200, 260. So it's going to make the level 1 and level 2 significantly better, but the level 3 and 4 almost unchanged. Well, unchanged at level 4. I think that's good. I never really liked the 65 damage level 1. I feel like that was kind of too weak. Torment, this is the ultimate. Using a non-ultimate ability grants Torture 4, 7, 10 health regen per second for 4 seconds. This effect does not stack additively, but using non-ultimate abilities will fresh the duration of the health regen bonus. So this is going to up his survivability a little bit. Torture does not have any form of sustain built into his kit. Leveling Torment will now grant him a tiny bit of health sustain to help with this issue. Now the one thing to point out here is that this can be buffed with stuff like Gnome's Wisdom, increasing healing output as well as Sackstone. So that makes items like Sackstone and Gnomes obviously still good, but even better with this. So you can stagger the use of your abilities. So like let's say for example you're farming creep waves and you use your Agonizing Bonds to kill some creeps. You're gonna get the health regen kicked in to kind of give yourself a little bit of regen there, which I think is nice. This doesn't really change a whole lot. It's just like a small little thing added on. And of course, you have to have the Torment leveled up. So prior to level 6, you won't have this effect. You need to at least have the Torment leveled up in order to start getting these regen bonuses. Tremble, Terror Mounds level 3 cast range increase from 5,000 to 7,000. So this makes the skill almost global at level 3, but not quite global, which kind of brings back some of the old capabilities of Tremble to an extent. Again, it used to be global at level 1, so it used to be insanely strong. This is just going to bring back some of the scaling a little bit better. Whereas the level 4 is still making it global. And now it's the level 3 going to have 7,000 range. Where's Tremble? So it's global at level 4, but level 3 going to go to 7,000 range over 5,000. I like it. Voodoo Jester starting attack damage changed from 51 to... Okay, so a little bit lower attack damage. Not going to change very much at all. And that is going to finish out the hero balance. So we've gone over staff changes and hero balance. Now we will go over items. So we're getting close to concluding here. Fabo is going to be having a recipe cost reduction by 300 gold here. Which means the total cost of Fabo going to 1900. This also reduces Wingbow's cost by 300 as well. And now melee heroes gain 50 attack range. So before, melee heroes couldn't gain any of the bonuses from the Fabo, but now melee heroes are going to get 50 attack range. That's nice. So cheaper and giving bonuses to melee. Savage Mace change to gain True Strike reduced from 100% to 80%. Chance to proc other effects remains unchanged at 40%. So you don't get 100% pure counter to Wingbow or evasion effects anymore. It's going to be 80%, which is going to basically mean you almost never miss, but there's going to now be a little bit of leeway for Wingbow to, or evasion hero effects to have some kind of a chance to miss, which I think is fine. Next is Wingbow. So again, this what we talked about earlier, it got the cost reduced by 300. Agility bonus increased by 1. Melee heroes now also gain an additional 5 agility for a total of 38. So ranged heroes get 33. Melee heroes get 38 agility. 38 agility is a lot, by the way. That is going to be really strong on melee heroes specifically. Still really good on ranged heroes, which it was more commonly picked up on ranged before. Especially due to the attack range. But now, melee heroes are going to get 75 attack range from the Wingbow, and of course, 50 before they complete the Wingbow with the Fallbow. But 75 total on melee heroes, and I believe it's still 150 on ranged, right? 150 and 20% evasion to ranged. Okay, so I was right about that. So 150 attack range to a ranged hero and 75 attack range to melee heroes. So these changes make Wingbow more viable on melee heroes and retain some usefulness of both a bonus evasion even against Savage Mace. So 5900 should make Wingbow quite a bit better than when it was 6200. Other item changes. We have Codex here. Magic damage for level 1 increased by 20 damage. I think that's fine. Heroes that commonly pick up this item are at a much more balanced performance now due to changes made for those heroes. As a result, Codex level 1 damage value can be reverted. Genjuro, attack damage bonus reduced from 35 to 30, attack speed bonus reduced from 20 to 10, so Genjuro getting some nerfs here. Genjuro was already giving a lot of value through its upgraded active ability from Assassin Shroud. Some of its free stat bonuses have been toned down slightly because of this. Its pickup rate should now be more comparable to that of Wingbow. So basically, the argument here was Genjuro was almost always a better item pickup than a Wingbow in a lot of cases, and now with Genjuro getting some toned down, and Wingbow getting some buffs, that'll make the two items more comparable. So we can see Wingbow picked up more commonly instead of people just going straight to a Genjuro in its place because you get so many benefits from that item specifically. So I like this, toning down the Genjuro and buffing up the Wingbow. Yep, I think I read this. Pickup rate should not be more. Yep, okay. Ghost Marchers, state duration of the bonus movement speed increased from 3 to 3.5 seconds. Okay, small buff to Ghost Marchers. Helm of the Black Legion, health reduced by 20 and block chance reduced by 10%. We've been seeing a lot of Helm and Altors after the buffs. So these are going to tone them down just a tiny bit. I think these items will still be fine. And again, when these items are really, really strong, we tend to see tank or strength hero meta. So these items, you never really want them to be like overpowered or anything because then they kind of make the meta very stale and whatnot. Altor's Heavy Helm, same thing here. We got the bonus health reduced by this one by 25 and the block reduced by 10. Altor's Heavy Helm was a little too effective after its previous buffs, so its block amount and max health bonus have been slightly reduced. Okay. And lastly, we have some bug fixes. The following sources of armor reduction and magic armor reduction will no longer apply to boss units. So I guess there was armor, magic, and physical armor sources working on Kongor and whatnot. Blacksmith's Flaming Hammer, Hellbringer's Evil Presence, Myrmidon Waveform, King Cloud Conscription, Revenant Mortification, Treble Impalers, and the controllable Shudder Impalers, Armor of the Mad Mage, Harkon's Blade, and Shieldbreaker. So all of these armor reduction sources will no longer work on boss units. That is a big deal because basically there's a lot of inconsistencies in the game. So I'll just use one example before we move to the next thing here is why should a demonic breastplate not reduce the armor but a shieldbreaker does, so to speak. So there needs to be those consistencies in the game, and these I guess were bug fixes because they were not supposed to be reducing the armor, so that's going to fix those things moving forward. And lastly, we have some hero stuff. Amundra, Ignite now deals proper damage after respawning. Bloodhunter reduces the volume of the hissing. Bubbles take cover no longer trigger when Bubbles damages himself. Oh, I guess that's auto take cover if you Blood Chalice with auto take cover on. Okay, that makes sense. Alonia Absolute Zero's trail visual effect is now correct for Frost Shard. Elden Vale's stun state from Plunge now correctly treated as a status disable instead of a status debuff. Magebane Mana Combustion now properly displays its visual mana trail effects when burning an enemy unit's mana. Myrmidon Waveforms detrimental states applied to enemy units now properly treated as status debuffs. And then we have items bugs. Incendiaries now toggles off automatically upon death. This resolves a health quantity issue when interacting with Amun-Ra's Pyroclasmic Rebirth and Token of Life. Oh. Plated Greaves activation will no longer interrupt channeling, so you could TP out and armor or Plated Greave armor yourself, and you will not cancel your TP. Okay, that looks like that's the end there of patch. So I hope you guys enjoyed the HoN Patch Analysis here for version 4.10.1. Again, this could very well be the final patch here for Heroes of New Earth before the game does ultimately shut down. We still have 5 months left. We could still maybe get another balance patch, but this could very well be what the game will look like moving forward. So I hope you guys enjoyed the patch analysis, and I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments. Make sure to leave your thoughts and whatnot, and thank you all for watching. And well, I usually say see you all in the next one, but I'm not sure if we're going to have a next one. So hope you guys did enjoy the HoN patch analysis.